if they connect and bloom, oh, bloom. Showing if they connect and bloom.
Welcome to the Bloom Show. This is Sahid, your host. The Bloom Show is brought to you by New Bloom Media, and which is powered by New Bloom Solutions. This show is by the floral industry, for the floral industry, and this is a special episode, special series. It's the Blooming News Alerts Tariff series, and for the last 2 days, we've been interviewing experts and leaders in the floral industry across different sectors. So yesterday was Ecuador and supermarket sector. Today was Colombia. And then the distributor, importer, wholesaler, kind of a little bit of mix with AFIA today, which we have Christine Boldt and Rodrigo Leiva. And later on today, we're going to have SAF, Kate Penn of SAF speaking towards the florist. As I've asked throughout these shows is, we're very happy you're watching. We're very happy that this is valuable to you, as we are all in this together. And with information, we all make better decisions. But what is it if you keep it to yourself? So I encourage you, and we encourage you to share it with your audience. You could easily copy and paste the URL link, put it in an email, put it in a text, put it in a WhatsApp. It's powerful when we all know the same information, and it allows us to unify and be in this together and have empathy for each other. So without further ado, allow me to bring on to the show. And again, I want to say thank you to both of them, because it's last minute and they're all super busy trying to put this together and figure out their own businesses. But I do want to thank Rodrigo Leiva, the past president of AFIA, and Christine Boldt, the everything of AFIA, but the manager, the director, and the unsung hero, really, when it comes to this industry and the things they do. And hopefully we can learn a little bit about AFIA as well today, as I always make it a point to do in sharing what AFIA is and why it's important to support them. So without further ado, Rodrigo Leiva and Christine Boldt.
Showing if they connect and bloom, oh, bloom. Showing if they connect and bloom.
I can't help but dance to that little song. Welcome, everybody. How are you, Christine? Rodrigo, thank you for joining as always, and always making time for the show. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Hey, thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's, the purpose of the show is really to make it short and sweet. I know you guys are busy and there's so much on your plate. So let's do that. Let me jump in right into the questions. Here we go. What are the most pressing concerns importers are facing regarding the proposed U.S. flower import tariffs? Christine, if you want to get started.
Sure. I'll bring up a couple points, and I'm sure Rodrigo can add to it. So for me, the two main topics as far as the industry is concerned is, number one, the unknown. We didn't know a week ago this was going to happen. So having this, put on us right away and having to make business decisions overnight are a tough one. The second one is this is going to create a huge cash flow situation for most importers of record. Anyone who's an importer of record that imports flowers or imports any products has to now pay this tariff within a short period of time, but you don't necessarily sell it or get paid for a longer period of time. So the cash flow consequence of this, especially, again, not knowing about it ahead of time, is going to be very, very difficult for the importers of record right from the beginning.
Rodrigo, can you speak a little bit into that, since you're experiencing that one-on-one? And real quick, I made a mistake here. Can you share a little bit, Christine Boldt, what AFIA is? Because it's so important to know why you're someone to listen to, both of you.
Sure, no problem. So I'm the executive vice president for the Association of Floral Importers of America. After 42 years, we decided to expand our horizons and rebrand from Association of Floral Importers of Florida to America, to incorporate the fact that we do have importers of record all across the country. So we want everyone who's an importer of record to feel that they have a home and have an opportunity to be a member of the association.
Perfect. Thank you. Rodrigo, sorry to kind of cut off that
no.
But tell us, you as an importer yourself and being a part of AFIA, what is the impact for you?
So firstly, I will say, as an importer representing Sunshine Bouquet and Esmeralda Farms, we think that AFIA is an invaluable industry association. For us, it really, really covers the needs that we have as Miami as importers from Colombia and from Ecuador and everywhere that we bring our products from. Having that representation in the United States, it's our boots on the ground. It is absolutely our 911 on minimal issues and on major issues and everything in between. So I've proudly been on the board for a better part of about 3 years. I was president for 2. We're now being led. The board is now being led by Eric Fernandez, who's doing a phenomenal job from Continental Flowers. So that's where we are today, and that's AFIA, which we think is an absolute necessity, and it's critical that we're a member of that association, especially in moments like this. It's the collective action or the actions of AFIA that really allow us to have a voice and direct that voice in the correct direction to the appropriate people in government. That allows then myself and my organization to do what we do best, which is grow flowers and provide exceptional service and high quality products to our customers without worrying about the critical work that Christine does on a daily basis. So kind of that's separate, and that's why Christine is so good at what she does. Exactly what she mentioned is kind of some of the big pain points from an importer perspective is really what's going on. And I sort of can't second or third or fourth echo what she said about the cash flow. When an airway bill arrives into the United States, we receive an invoice from CBP, and that is paid net 10. As Christine mentioned, we may not see an invoice to a customer. We'll receive that product. Few days later, that product then gets invoiced, shipped to the customer. 30 days later, 45 days, depending on the situation, supermarkets or wholesaler or payment terms that a company has agreed upon. There's many variations. That obviously presents a cash flow crunch. And it's all relative, whether it's a big organization or small organization. You are now forced to front money that you never had to front before, and the velocity of these changes are incredibly impactful because less than a week ago, this wasn't our reality. Sure, the president had indicated that Wednesday was going to be a critical day for tariffs. It was Liberation Day. We all knew that, but nobody knew what to expect exactly and how it would look. We were aware of reciprocity, but how does that look for Floral? Today, Colombia, as we know, has a 10% tariff, and Ecuador has a stacked tariff, meaning it has a new 10% tariff that was implemented last week, plus the 6.4 or 6.8 that existed previously through on floral products. So that's where we are today, but it's a big cash crunch, and it's evaluating the landscape, understanding what our costs are going to be, notwithstanding the cash crunch costs, but just the sheer cost of the volume of invoices coming in, paying that and processing that, and being as fair as possible to our customers and to our farms.
How can Christine or maybe it's not a right question, but how can the wholesalers or supermarkets work with that? Is there anything they can do to support, or just it is what it is?
Well, I think, a tariff put on is not something, not only did we not expect it, but I don't think the flower industry expected it. So I think it's an understanding from the customers that there's an increase in costs, and those increasing costs cannot be borne by one. They have to be across the board.
Yeah. As I've always said, this business, for good or for bad, is a penny's business. It really is. We make money on the fractions of the penny, not the fractions of the dollar, on a per stem basis. So it really, I don't think there's anybody that can conceivably say, I'm going to absorb this 10% tariff. I had it already built in. I was flush with cash. What's another 10? So that's a reality, and it is an inflationary there is an inflationary consequence here in the sense that we're all going to have to raise our prices or pass that through to our customers because it is a penny's business. And hopefully, as the government kind of maneuvers through this, maybe there's going to be a different perspective, or we'll be able, as an industry and through AFIA, be able to shed light on why Floral perhaps shouldn't have these tariffs assessed on it. I think there are ways that we could maybe carve that out. It's logical. In the United States, we have a beautiful floral industry. We grow gorgeous products in California. We have peonies in different parts of the country, sunflowers in different parts of the country. I mean, we have beautiful flowers, but certainly, bottom line, 88% of the flowers that are sold in the United States were imported. No doubt we and domestic growers complement each other, but the vast majority does come from outside the borders of this country. And I don't foresee that changing anytime soon. So as far as, onboarding or onshoring rather, these farms onto the United States and start growing flowers here. Look, we grow flowers in South America because we're on the equator, 6,000 feet up. Our cycle on roses is shorter than anywhere else in the world, practically. We have sun and no seasonality. Whenever anybody asks, "Oh, what's the season for this rose?" Year round.
Yeah.
We're harvesting every single day of the year. That is why we grow flowers in South America. And that's a huge part of the story. We are climatically and geographically blessed, and hence we operate there.
100%. And yesterday, Joe Don said there's no way that we could grow enough flowers in the U.S.
Right.
to supplement that. There's no way.
We don't have the land, the labor, or the ability. Really, as Rodrigo said, we don't have the same climate all year round nowhere in the United States. So
we don't have to heat our greenhouses. We don't. I mean, it's just we have incredible amount of sunlight intensity every single day in the beautiful mountains of Colombia and Ecuador. It is what it is, and certainly on in the African continent, they have the same benefits in the areas of Naivasha or in Kenya and Ethiopia. It's the blessings of the geography that are a massive driver to this. The United States is not going to suddenly start onshoring coffee production in order to not import coffee beans. We can't grow coffee in the United States. Sorry, Starbucks. It's how it works.
Yeah. So another question here is, how could tariffs affect custom processing and cargo flow through Miami International Airport? And are we likely to see any bottlenecks or delays? That question came from an article that I read. Yeah. Christine, you're saying that it's very simple.
Technically the way that the executive order set it up, it's a separate line item on entry. So any importer of record, instead of having just one line item that they're for the product, they now have two. At the end, there's a separate 10% tariff item number, and that's paid on every customs entry. So it's not going to change the process. The broker just has to add one more line item. And as Rodrigo mentioned, then there's a short period of time to pay that tariff. But as far as, it's not going to change the way the inspections are done, it's not going to change the way the paperwork is done, other than adding that one line item.
Well, one thing that's interesting about that is I received a notice from a wholesaler, late last week. They were being asked by their freight company, so it's a customer of ours, but they don't buy farm direct from our company, they buy out of Miami. But they received from their freight company a notice saying, moving forward, you must set up an account with CBP. That is precisely going back to Christine's original point. The freight companies that were handling kind of wholesalers throughout the country that are doing, direct shipments, they didn't want to take responsibility of the cash flow crunch of these tariffs. So that was very interesting. I think that's going to be a huge bit. You need a revolver, some working capital that's just ready to deploy to just pay tariffs. And I know everybody, customers are all fixated on, well, what percent are you going to charge me? What are you going to pass through? And the analytics of this, but there's a significant math problem on the loans that maybe a company has to acquire in order to be able to float this money on a weekly basis, that prior to Saturday morning at 12:01 a.m., they didn't have to do. And we're talking about millions of dollars.
To add to that, Rodrigo, we're in a couple weeks, we're going to be shipping for our second major holiday, and those tariffs are going to be even, the amount of money being collected for that is even going to be higher. So 100% the monetary part of it, and being able to put out cash for someone else is not going to be something that most companies are going to be able to do.
And you're holding for what, 40 days? Because it's not 30 in most cases, then another 10, you're saying, right?
Well, it's all relative to when a company receives the product, when they ship it out and invoice it to a customer. But looking at Christine's point of a holiday, let's talk about a flower that arrives in the United States on May 1st, ships out May 5th. By May 10th, you've already paid the duty on that flower.
Yep.
Your customer's probably receiving that flower on May 10th. and they still have to sell it. They're not going to pay you for, again, depending on what payment terms you have with the customers and stuff like that. So you can just see how companies are out. And again, as Christine says, the second biggest holiday of the year, the volume, the sheer volume of Mother's Day, as we all kiddingly say, everyone has a mother, not everyone has a lover. Volume in Mother's Day is much higher than Valentine's, much higher.
And as you said, this is 6, 7 figures. This is not a couple $100. This is thousands and thousands.
I'm talking about collectively, as these companies, and certainly the larger ones are going to have some really significant bills. But again, it's all relative. But the point is, yes, you're talking about millions of dollars. For just for Mother's Day amongst all the companies, it's a very, very big number.
That's crazy. That's crazy to see. And so we're all in it together, right? So we're all being affected with this in one way or another.
And look, the flower business has done an incredible job. We're very resilient. We lived the pandemic, we lived COVID, and thrived during that period. This is another obstacle that we'll have to overcome collectively and work alongside with our customers to understand how we can pass these things forward. But again, like I said, it is a penny's business. I'm not bringing the donation basket around. It's just what it is, and it's got to be passed on. Unfortunately, I think that flowers shouldn't be necessarily included in this tariff conversation. At this point, if it's not something that we're willing to onshore, then it's a consumption tax. And if it becomes a consumption tax, it's going to affect our consumption of that product. And we need to be very careful about that. So I hope again, this will never be an onshore industry. I never expect the United States to be a massive grower of fresh cut flowers. And that's some of the work that Christine was actually doing last week, was kind of evaluating that. And I don't know if you want to speak about it, but certainly it's about, communicating to the right people that we need some help.
And that goes into my next question is what are AFIA and its members doing to prepare or advocate on behalf of importers during uncertain times? And I do want to preface, I can't even say it right, but preface it correctly. Thank you, Rodrigo. I'm going to hear that later. Preface in the sense that there's so much you've done in the past years, right? So what have you done in the past years, and what are we continuing to do? Because I think, again, it's important to inform our community of all the work you guys do behind the scene as AFIA.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly say, prior to 2020, we did not have roses on the generalized system of preferences, the GSP. So all the roses that came from Ecuador had a tax or a duty on them. And in 2020, we were able to get roses added to the generalized system of preferences. We got that added as of October 1st, 2020, but then the GSP expired at the end of 2020. So since January 21st of 2021 to today, we still pay duties on all products coming from Ecuador. So as Rodrigo mentioned earlier, we have a stacked tariff. We have 10% plus 6.4 to 6.8% coming from Ecuador. So we have been the last 4 years working really hard in Washington trying to get the generalized system of preferences passed so that we can get that stacked tax off, but also to reimburse the companies that are paid. In the flower industry, we have more than $80 million that's sitting in an account with customs for those GSP funds. So we continue still on a weekly basis to work with Washington and trying to get that passed. Now, as of last week, as soon as the president put this tariff on all countries that do business with the United States, we immediately reached out to our friends in Washington, in the House and the Senate, and said, okay, what can we do? How can we try to get some relief from this? Because as Rodrigo mentioned, we're not going to be able to turn around and start growing that in the United States. So based on that, we are working with members of Congress to try to see what we can do to get this relief. And we continue to work on that. And they were shocked in some of these things as we were. So we're just trying to see what we can do to get it done as soon as possible. We always advocate for the members today, tomorrow, and in the future.
Yeah. And Christine is it's a constant job. It's constant battle, or not battle, but yeah, it's constant effort, I will say. And certainly last Friday, late on Friday, Christine and I and several other members are on a call, working on with some of the AFIA staff to try to get workarounds on this again, and to petition with the right government agencies to hopefully understand what's going on here, and if we can get some different treatment here. Is that fair to say, Christine?
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. So
Christine, something we touch quickly on. What's the difference between GSP and tariff?
So GSP, the Generalized System of Preferences, is a program that the government instituted years ago. It's for 140 countries for thousands of products. It provides low income or third world countries the opportunity to sell to the United States duty free. So most of the time it's a stepping stone if there are countries or products that countries want to be able to sell to the United States, but they just can't compete unless they are able to do it duty free. The government of the United States set up this program years and years ago to provide them with an opportunity. There are limits. I mean, it's a very complicated program, but there are limits, but it allows programs. So that duty, because it's under a program, that those duties can go away if the government reinstates it. And in the past, they have always reinstated it back to the starting point, which is why we have $80 million sitting in an account for the flower industry, because the thought was all along that we are going to be able to get those duties back, because it's never lapsed this long and it's always been retroactive. So we're hoping that at some point we can get past these tariffs and get back to GSP, get GSP passed, so that even after this tariff issue, we can have products from Ecuador come in duty free like they do from most of the other countries that we receive products from.
But to clarify something, these tariffs that are replaced by the Trump administration will not be paid back at any point.
I do not. I mean, of course, I can't speak 100% for the government, but tariffs usually are not repaid. They're not given back. That's why this is a tariff, not a program. So the Generalized System of Preferences is a program that is, there's a lot of, I mean, the countries have to apply, and it's based on whether the government accepts them into it. Tariffs are just, the government has set that, everything in the country is paying these duties. So these duties are not, in my opinion, ever going to be repaid. Yeah. These will never come back to us.
Yeah, I mean,
that's why it's just an increase in the cost, and that's where companies need to choose how they're going to handle that moving forward.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, Rodrigo?
No, I as usual, agree with Christine, and I think it's hard to say what the government's gonna do with this. I agree. I doubt that it's refundable, and certainly if you listen to certain members of the administration, including the president himself, has mentioned at times that they absolutely view tariffs as well as a way to fund the deficit and the budget. So if you're going to reimburse, well, then you're undoing what you say may be happening. And again, I don't want to try to understand all the hypotheticals here, but that's just kind of my impression. Is I don't believe that's gonna be given back if next week the government decides to undo the tariffs that they just imposed a week ago. I don't think that that's the case. Certainly, GSP is a different program, and Christine and I and several other members of AFIA have tirelessly worked, and thanks to the contributions of a lot of our members, because that's not a funding, to get lobbyists and whatnot is not a funding mechanism that AFIA just uses out of its cash reserves. These are contributing companies, partners of ours, that have decided, okay, this is important, let me help, and I'll help fund it. So that's been funded by a separate project as part of AFIA. And grateful to the many companies that have made contributions there. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been possible. But that's a huge lift. And not just for flowers. Flowers happen to be on there, and that's $80 million. But you have well over $1.5 billion of other goods on there, including Samsonite suitcases, Coach bags. There's several other companies that are importing flowers from importing goods from certain areas of the world that have that GSP program. Wow. Flowers is just one component of it.
Good insight. Thank you so much. A final question is, what message would you share with the broader floral supply chain and the industry and the community, from farms to retailers, as we work together through this?
I
I
think
would just say very quickly that we're all in this together. This is not a tariff that was put on just in the flower industry, and we have to justify it. The president of the United States stood up there and put tariffs on every country that does business with the United States. Therefore, it's general knowledge that these increase in costs are there.
Yeah, and we all have to work together on that. And certainly, nobody likes a price increase. I don't like seeing my cable bill go up. I don't like seeing the famous price of eggs go up. We don't like this, but there's certain realities. But again, I would almost question a floral partner that didn't want to charge it at all. I'd be questioning what their margins were before this happened if they're not willing to pass on the 10% cost. I think there's a question mark there because again, I can't emphasize enough. This is a penny's business. Now, as companies, fortunately, we're all thriving companies in Miami. We sell a lot of flowers and hopefully can make a living on it. But the point is, it's not that money's not just 10% isn't sitting around. So we need to work together. And I think there's going to be some, obviously there's going to be some natural resistance. Well, I'm not paying for it. We're going to have to work together on this. This is, and again, it's, I was visiting a client last week, and obviously they carry all sorts of goods, and they it's the flowers, but it's also it's all the produce, it's all the center aisle as well. So everything has gone up. It's not my wish, it's what has happened.
Yeah.
And we all need to work together, but we also want to have healthy suppliers. So that battle of trying to fight what percentage downstream you should pay for. Well, look, we want to have healthy partners. Ultimately, you want to be doing business with people that are going to be there tomorrow and going to be continuing to grow and expand for you tomorrow and sell you more flowers tomorrow. If your desire is to have 10% more flowers next year than this year, you want to lean into the company that's going to be doing that for you, or companies.
And also hard goods is being affected, ribbon,
all of it, it's the whole ecosystem. It's the whole ecosystem. Minus obviously American flowers obviously aren't being American grown flowers obviously aren't being assessed a tariff, but the fertilizer they're buying,
Yes.
all most of the goods that they use have inputs that are going to go up, and they certainly have a platform to also ask to pass that on. It's a reality, and kind of we're all going to have to kind of rise.
Yeah, that's well said. We have one question / comment. Thank you very much, Christina and Rodrigo, for the insights. The work of AFIA is invaluable. Wishing you all the best in getting heard and being successful. Sorry we block you out there, Rodrigo, for a special tariff treatment for flowers. The global flower industry has always thrived on duty-free trade. Do you expect that a country like Mexico, except for the new tariff, as I understand, might benefit from the new situation?
Yeah, I can answer that. Unfortunately for us, and we get majority of our product from Colombia and Ecuador and Europe and Costa Rica, Guatemala. The tariffs were lifted on Mexican products last Friday. So right now, Mexico is getting, they can, and their products can enter the United States duty free. And going back to Rodrigo's point, hopefully we can work with the government and state why should only Mexico get the benefit of duty-free treatment for flowers or floral products.
Yeah.
Why can't we with the rest of the 85%?
Right. And to that point, again, I agree with everything Christine says, but I do. But the quick answer is obviously yes. Today, at this moment, Mexican flowers relative to Colombian or Ecuadorian flowers are advantaged. The amount of stems that are produced in Colombia and Ecuador far outweighs the amount of stems that are produced in Mexico. There aren't enough roses or rose bouquets to be produced out of Mexico to ever cover the demands of the entire country. So make no mistake, the Americans' pantry for flowers is absolutely Colombia and Ecuador. Yes, Canada, Mexico are beautiful complements to the industry, and not small ones. I'm not trying to belittle it at all. I'm just talking about if you decided to dry up, if the president said today, you know what, no more flower imports from Colombia and Ecuador, every wedding will be just a bunch of twigs in this country. I mean, it's just, floral displays at the supermarkets will be empty. There aren't enough flowers anywhere else, certainly in the short run, to accommodate the demands, thankfully, the demands and the needs of American consumers that do lean into our product and find joy in it every single day and want it in their households, and that everyday consumption that continues to grow does not exist thanks to only domestic production or Colombia, I mean, or Canada or Mexico. You need Ecuador and Colombia in there. Just the sheer volume.
Right. The volume from Mexico is very low. I mean, it's overall for the total imports. It peaked at about 5% a few years ago, but it's about between 3 and 4% of the total volume.
And what is Colombia and Ecuador, Christine?
Colombia is over 60%, 60 to 65%. Ecuador is about 20 to 25. Yeah. So it's 85% of our product comes from 2 countries. Yeah.
You just can't delete that.
Well, maybe just
so yeah, they do have an advantage price wise or cost wise, I should say.
Volume. Yeah.
But it's just
the volume's not there. So thank you both so much for your time. I know I said 15 minutes, but it was great information. So we lasted 30. I really appreciate your time and the short notice for jumping in. So thank you again.
Thank you.
To both of you for the work you do with the GSP and also with AFIA. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for being supportive.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too.
So there we go from 2 well-informed people in our industry. Christine Boldt's been doing this for years, Rodrigo himself as well, and being a part of AFIA and speaking from experience. And that's something we need to take away today, is understanding that it is going to be a strain on all of us. So obviously when it gets lower to the consumer, it's going to be a strain on them as well. So it's working together and being empathetic for what we're all each going through, because in all reality, we have to support each other's businesses, especially if you like the business, because that you want that business to be around for years to come. So again, thank you to everybody for joining. I do want to do a little shopkeeping here. We do have SAF, Society of American Florists, the president, Kate Penn, today at 1 p.m. And then on Monday, we have Charlie Hall. So please remember to subscribe, press the alert key. And again, we have another comment, but again, share it. Sharing is caring. So grab a link, share it. If you find one of these episodes important for your audience, target audience, share with them, because it's very important for them to be informed and therefore creating unity. Let me see what this comment was. Thank you very much for a clear response. All the best from Sylvie. Thank you, Sylvie, for chiming in. Appreciate everybody at watch. And thank you again to Rodrigo, Leiva, and Christine Boldt for joining and sharing your time today. Take care.
The bloom, showing a fake and them bloom. The bloom, showing a fake and them